Previously on Top 100.
The long hair, white shoes. He was New York. He was Broadway.
He will knock your head off. I don't care how big he is.
He was 100 miles an hour off the field, and he was 100 miles an hour on the field.
Now, the countdown continues.
Every time I'm in line and I see some high school kid bagging my groceries, I know I got broken eggs. I just know it. But if it makes great quarterbacks, I'll pay the price. It's so rewarding when a guy gets to the mountain who went all the way up from the bottom of the mountain.
Love you, Coach. I love you too. Thanks for the team. You are special.
I write movies, and if I pitch that story, I get laughed out of the room, right?
If the Kurt Warner story was a Hollywood movie, it would fall into the action-adventure category.
What a pass by Kurt Warner, the first quarterback in NFL history with 3 touchdown passes in each of his first 3 starts.
In this genre, the main character comes from humble beginnings. Before joining the St. Louis Rams, Warner played minor league football and worked at a supermarket to make ends meet.
You had to score every time you touched the ball. You threw every down. It helped me become more accurate, to get the ball out quickly. Arena football helped me tremendously to handle everything that would be thrown at me in the years to come.
We got Trent Green down. We've got Trent Green down in the middle of the field.
These scripts always contain a moment of crisis when an ordinary man is called on to do extraordinary things.
Kurt Warner checks in.
Vermeil, who cries easily, let's admit it, but this time had a pretty good reason. It just was like, there goes our season.
We will rally around Kurt Warner, and we'll play good football.
In 1999, his first year as a starter, Warner threw 41 touchdown passes and led the Rams to the Super Bowl.
Couldn't ask for a better script. Let's go win it right now.
The Super Bowl can bury great players of great confidence, but he's one of those guys who had the ability to, like, I guess I'll digest this in the off season, you know? I got enough to do right now. Easy thing to say, but hard to do.
Kurt Warner followed up his regular season MVP with a Super Bowl MVP, and his 414 yards passing remains a Super Bowl record.
St. Louis, the gateway to the West, is now the gateway to the best football team in the world.
In the second act, the hero suffers a reversal of fortune. In the middle of his story, Kurt Warner looked like a flop. But he authored a Hollywood ending by leading the Arizona Cardinals to the Super Bowl in 2008.
Now Warner going deep, airing it out, middle of the field. Fitz is there, he corners the 10, touchdown!
It's like nothing you've ever felt before. Understand what we got at stake now. Let's go get the one next week. And as Todd said, let's shock the world.
This story is so fundamentally rewarding. America's supposed to be about stories like that, and so when they happen, everybody just feels kind of redeemed and your hope gets renewed. Here's a guy who could have easily been somebody we never knew about. And for all we know, there's another Kurt Warner who is still bagging groceries. You know, maybe he's in produce now.
Interest in pro football spread to California, where a Stanford All-American named Ernie Nevers was known as the hardest linebacker on the Western Slope. After a word with Mom and Dad, Nevers signed the richest football contract of his day, $15,000.
Nevers was one of the most famous college players of his time. For someone like Nevers to bring his star, which had already been well established at Stanford, into the NFL was to give the NFL a tremendous boost and to make people pay attention to it, to give it newspaper coverage, to make people pay attention to the games.
Along with Red Grange, the biggest football name of the 1920s was Ernie Nevers. His popularity was evident both at stadium turnstiles and movie box offices.
I'm afraid that the crooks will get away if the storm breaks.
Don't worry about a little storm, Kate. I'm going to get Betty and Tom out of that car if I have to go through hellfire.
Beyond Hollywood, Nevers continued to take his act on the road as the leading man on the most celebrated barnstorming team in NFL history.
Nevers signed on in 1926 with the Duluth Eskimos. Played for them for 2 seasons, 26 and 27.
We played one game in Duluth and the rest of them all over the country. I think we played 29 games that year. We had 16 players, and we traveled with a squad like that. Sometimes the manager and the assistant manager and the water boy and the trainer would have to put suits on to make the bench look a little bigger.
Nevers was a kicker on his team. He kicked field goals, played as a defender also, and he was the toughest fullback of his day. He was also a Major League Baseball pitcher, I should add, at the same time, pitching for the St. Louis Browns. In fact, in 27, he gave up 2 of Babe Ruth's 60 home runs. And then he came back to the Chicago Cardinals to play 3 more years in the NFL from 29 to 31. If you look in the NFL record and fact book today, the oldest record by any individual belongs to Ernie Nevers, scoring 40 points, all 40 points for the Chicago Cardinals in a 40-6 victory over the Chicago Bears on Thanksgiving Day, 1929 at Comiskey Park. The game before that, Nevers scored all 19 points for the Cardinals. So think of it, in that season, 59 consecutive Cardinal points were scored by Ernie Nevers. That also is a record that hasn't been broken from that time.
When the Pro Football Hall of Fame first opened its doors in 1963, the inaugural induction class was an NFL who's who. It included Bronco Nagurski, Don Hutson, Mel Hein, and Ernie Nevers.
A great honor and a great privilege to be here in Canton today. It's even a greater honor to have been included among such a great array of fine football players and great competitors.
Nevers was selected by that original committee despite the fact that he played only 5 seasons in the NFL. None of the other charter members played as few as 5 seasons. So the impact of Nevers in those 5 seasons must have been overwhelming for him to get that designation as a charter member of the Hall of Fame.
Beautiful night in Baltimore.
He really loves the game of football. He's like a big kid at it.
For some football.
When great players go out and have fun, having a free spirit like that, usually are the ones that go out and make plays all the time because they're doing something that they love to do and very passionate about. And it seems like every Sunday you can see that with him. Ed Reed's somebody you have to highlight, every time going into a meeting. He's running around trying to hide behind offensive linemen or linebackers trying to disguise himself. He come up and lay wood to you.
What's up, boy?
He sees a lot of different things, and he likes to jump coverages. And usually, 90% of the time, he's correct, and that's why the reason he's got so many interceptions throughout his career.
I didn't want to be that guy who say, this is what I could have did. I could have been this, I could have did this, and that always drove me.
Ed Reed was Baltimore's first-round draft pick in 2002. Just 2 years later, the versatile safety was the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year.
He can play offense. I really think he can go up and line up as a wide receiver. When that ball's in the air, he's always thinking about scoring.
Half the time when you catch an interception, they can't do anything about it because it's linemen. It's linemen. All the receivers are downfield. And I'm like, well, this is like a cakewalk.
Ed Reed covers the length of the field.
He's a great punt returner. I mean, he can return punts, return field goal kicks.
Ed Reed with what might be the game-breaking play.
Anytime he gets on the punt block team, he's somebody you have to account for, and he's such a game breaker, and he can change the game at any time being out on the field.
This guy is a complete football player.
Hey, boy, get over here. Easy, man. Come on now. Two good football players for that now.
The battles that we had, we leave them on the field.
I know how you play, dog. It's good. It's cool. Sometimes you be taking some cheap though, man.
I've been hit by Ed Reed a couple of times. Usually I'm the guy that's responsible for him. Usually in the run game, or I got to put my hands on him somewhat. So, he's just so elusive, so quick. You sitting back and waiting on him. If you do that, he'll blow right by you or run right over you. He's kind of like the Robin to the Batman.
Me and you, man. Damn, bro.
Ray Lewis, of course, is the Batman. He controls the interior guys, and Ed Reed controls the secondary guys. Both of those guys are the heart and soul of the Baltimore Ravens. I wish, personally, I wish they would retire so I don't have to keep dealing with them. Just a phenomenal player, great all-around player. You can't speak enough about him.
My goal is just to enjoy it and have no regrets. I like to be the best to ever play the game.
With less than a minute to go to the half, Waterfield drops back to pass. It's that screen pass again to Hirsch, and Mr. Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch is touchdown bound.
With the Los Angeles Rams, 49-50-51, you've got a team that explodes offensively, and the single most dangerous weapon on that offense was Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. Crazy Legs Hirsch is the most dangerous pass receiving weapon in pro football since Don Hutson. We talked today about yards after the catch, but he would get acres of yards after the catch because he was so elusive in the open field. When the ball was up in the air, he looked like Willie Mays in center field. He could adjust and wind up catching the ball over his shoulder in stride about as well as anyone. If you take a look at the offensive stats in pro football, then he was not just the best in the league, he was head and shoulders above his competitors.
But Hirsch's legs, not his head and shoulders, earned him one of the most famous nicknames in sports history. His unorthodox stride inspired a sports writer to tab him Crazy Legs. The nickname perfectly captured pro football's wild, unpredictable identity at mid-century. But physically, Elroy Hirsch really did have crazy legs.
I'm kind of deformed. My left foot points out farther out than my right. So when I take the step with the left leg, I have to bring it back behind my body. Now there's got to be some way I have to get it around in front of me again, so I have to swing it out and around. And the harder I run, I wobble. It's like Spike or Babe or something like that. I wouldn't know what to do if somebody called me Elroy. Most people call me Legs.
During his playing days, Hirsch's legs and looks made him a camera-ready leading man for movies and television.
Crazy Legs, how do you keep yourself in condition?
That's easy. Plenty of sleep, exercise, and the right kind of foods. And I drink chocolate-flavored Ovaltine. But be sure it's Ovaltine and not just an ordinary milk flavoring.
He looked glamorous. Hirsch was one of the first players to wear the painted helmet, this icon of American pop culture design with the gold, sweeping, graceful ram's horn. Hirsch looked different, he played different, and he was creating these highlight reels week in and week out with big plays and long passes. Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch set the standard for the way the game would evolve in the next 20 to 30 years as the first true flanker deep threat. He gave us a glimpse into the future of pro football at a time when much of the league's teams still played 3 yards in a cloud of dust offense. Hirsch was the first of his kind.
Willie was one of those guys that you thought intelligence first. He exuded it all the time.
You taught me how to play defense, baby. And I mean that from my heart.
You'd hear about it from other ball players because they were very much aware of Willie's smarts.
And I think everybody got enough people here to meet the challenge.
He had earned an MBA from the University of Chicago at about the same time he collected his 5th World Championship ring. But Willie Davis did not seem destined for greatness when his career began in 1958.
Willie played offensive tackle, defensive end at Cleveland with me. Very seldom came off the football field. The greatest thing happened to him was that Paul Brown got disenchanted and sent him to Green Bay to Lombardi. His first game against the Browns, we never blocked him. He almost killed us.
Basically, my whole career has been proving a point that I can play football with guys who came from bigger colleges, that I could play football against the best football players from anywhere, that I could carve my niche.
The thing that I was impressed with was his ability to turn that tackler loose and run down a running back on the far end. We hadn't seen a lot of that from ball players. He could move from his set position so quickly that he never got the full blow of the offensive guy coming at him. So he very seldom got pancaked. And all of that was a part of making him great because he could slip and slide away from some of the big linemen who were coming at him. He could move so quick that he could get in position to make those tackles. And he could run down people. Willie had that great smile. He'd give you that smile when things were going good. And when he knew he was whipping us real good, the smile got wider.
Those joyous moments included Davis's forced $1 million fumble on John Unitas in 1966, which sent Green Bay to the NFL title game. A dominating defensive performance in Super Bowl II, 5 All-Pro selections, and membership on the 1960s All-Decade team.
I'd just like to say that it's been a great time for me the last 10 years playing here for the Green Bay Packers. I'm surely indebted to my teammates, the Packer organization, but most of all, to you, the fan. I would just like to say it's been more than a game. It's been a way of life. Thank you.
Before the countdown continues, here's a look back at numbers 90 to 86. Number 90, the man with the 3 highest single-game passing totals in Super Bowl history, Kurt Warner. Number 89, the player who once scored 40 points in a single game, the NFL record, Ernie Nevers. Number 88, Ed Reed.
Some boy!
Number 87, Elroy Crazy Legs Hirsch. Number 86, Willie Davis.
It's been more than a game. It's been a way of life.
And now, number 85.
Here's the thing that I remember most about Marcus Allen. Marcus didn't carry himself like a golden boy. In the old Raider running game, that tailback had to block. Most of those runners, they don't want to do the dirty work. Marcus didn't hesitate. And I shouldn't have been surprised. I mean, he did it in college.
I was recruited as a defensive back and then moved to fullback, and I don't think you can pretend to be tough. Either you are or you're not. I always felt like football was like the greatest laboratory in the world. You could really examine who you are and find out whether you have the quit in you, whether you have the fight in you.
Over 16 years with the Raiders and Chiefs, Marcus Allen often demonstrated his toughness at the goal line. When he retired, Allen's 145 touchdowns were the most of any running back in NFL history. But statistical accomplishments are only a part of his greatness.
Here's a guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, who's leading the league in rushing, who's, doing all these things. And by the way, we don't want you to be the running back anymore. We want you to be the fullback because Bo Jackson showed up, and Bo's explosive. And so what did Marcus do? He said, fine, I'll be a fullback. So he went back to being a fullback.
And a quick pitch to Jackson, getting an Allen block, cuts under it, bangs through Bosworth, touchdown Raiders!
Bo Jackson was a phenomenally big, fast man. But as a football player, Marcus Allen was head and shoulders above him. Marcus Allen could catch the ball. Marcus Allen could block. He could do everything.
Quick toss to Allen, comes back right, throwing deep, Christensen open. Touchdown Raiders!
Handoff, sweep right side, Marcus Big Hole, 30, 25, cuts inside, got a block, 20, cuts across the other way, 15, 10, foot race to the 5, rolling to the far sideline, he's got in a touchdown!
He didn't awe you with great speed. He didn't awe you with phenomenal moves. He was smooth. He kind of glided. He could run away from you if he had to. You don't know how he did it, but he got away from it, like in the Super Bowl in that one run.
Crockett giving to Allen, sending him wide left. He has to reverse his field, but he gets away for a moment. Comes back up to the 30, 25, 40. Runs past 2 men at the 50. Holy Toledo! Touchdown Raiders! 7.
There's no way that he can outrun that team. No way, but he did it. And it always looks like somebody's going to catch Marcus, but they never do. Marcus Allen is a pure football player. He could have played defense. He could have been a fullback. He was selfless. He was a complete player. It's the best compliment you can give Marcus.
1957, and I'm waiting. It's the World Championship game. There is no Super Bowl. It's between Cleveland and Detroit. It's at Detroit. And here's the great Cleveland Browns, and they really were, coached by Paul Brown. You got all legends playing on this football team. Detroit does not beat them. They embarrass them.
Lou Carpenter tries to turn the right flank. The Lions all-pro linebacker Joe Schmidt lays Lou low for a 3-yard loss.
Joe Schmidt. He imposes his will. And Jim Brown, who's the greatest, had a very bad day. They run him right out of the gym.
Which sets up an interception by linebacker Joe Schmidt.
Everybody leaves the stadium with one word on their lips, and that's Joe Schmidt. He was drafted low. They spent all their money on a running back. I think his name was Gene Gedman. They had a parade for Gene Gedman. Had a parade downtown Detroit. Here comes our running back. As Joe got off the bus, he goes, "What's the parade for?" Our new running back.
Over the next 13 years, Detroit discovered it had celebrated the wrong arrival.
Joe Schmidt, the greatest linebacker to ever play. As he went into pro football, there was no middle linebacker. Luckily, he had been playing that at the University of Pittsburgh. He was cerebral. He was very intelligent. So he was always there making the play before the play got going.
I think you have to look at football skills, okay? The intuition about playing football. Some of those things you can't teach or diagram, and I think I had that ability.
Zeke Bratkowski connects with Willie Gallimore in the right flat, but a vicious tackle by Gary Lowe jars the ball loose. Joe Schmidt picks it up at the 14, dribbles once, and goes in to score for Detroit.
He, to me, is the history of the National Football League. For every single play, he spilled his guts. He was playing in a preseason game, no face mask. Takes a heel on the eye, and they rip his eye open. This was the NFL, as I remember it. And they give him 22 stitches in the eye at halftime. He says, "It's a preseason game. This game doesn't count." The coach says, "Joe, you will start the second half." And to this day, Joe says, "I don't think I can see." And the coach says, "Just see what you can out of that other eye." And that's how his whole career was played. Joe Schmidt, too small, too slow, just the best there ever was.
In 1958, head coach Buck Shaw wanted a veteran quarterback, and Norm Van Brocklin was coming, an all-pro quarterback. I knew nothing about him except, what he had done with the Rams.
Norm Van Brocklin drops back, throws an arching pass upfield. Rangy Tom Pierce gathers it in on the dead run and races all the way to score for Los Angeles. A 72-yard touchdown play.
During 9 seasons in Los Angeles, Norm Van Brocklin led the Rams to an NFL championship and was twice the league's top-rated passer. In 1951, Van Brocklin passed for a record 554 yards in a single game. Over a half-century later, the record still stands. The mercurial Dutchman's clashes with team management resulted in a trade to Philadelphia, where in 1960, Van Brocklin engineered an Eagles resurgence.
The Eagles' fearless pigskin pitcher is red hot, and so are the rest of the Eagles.
In practice, I was like a little gnat. I just stood behind the huddle when he was calling plays, and I would listen to his play, and I'd call the same play that he had called in the huddle. And where he's executed it, I couldn't execute it. He knew where to throw the ball. He knew when to throw the ball, how to throw the ball. Learned touch from him. When we would have scrimmages, he would not scrimmage. He'd say, Buck, put the kid in. I'd be in there as a young quarterback and the rush is coming. I'd start trying to get out of there and run with the football. And he would stand back there and scream and holler at me, "Stay in there, you stay in there. Don't you come out of there." Over and over again. He had a temper. Without question, he had a temper. He wanted it done the right way, and he didn't like people screwing around in practice. He was tough, but fair, and a smart football player. And I did learn how to play position of quarterback from Norm Van Brocklin. After we won it in '60, Buck Shaw retired. They made Van Brocklin the coach, but he got fired before the season started because he was making changes in the organization, so they let him go. And I always wondered what it was going to be like to have had Norm Van Brocklin as a head coach.
Hey, Wages, where'd you go on the pitch? Wages, what's the matter with you? You go back in the game till I tell you to. Understand, Harmon? You're in the big leagues now. You understand? Yes, sir. Well, let's start growing up. You line up where you're supposed to line up. None of that Harry High School, fake this. Do what we're told. Yes, you can't play football in the NFL. You can't play football for me.
As a head coach, Van Brocklin's fiery temperament was a liability. But as a player, his intensity made him a leader like no other.
The fabulous Dutchman Norm Van Brocklin earned the league's Most Valuable Player award for his role in the Eagles' flight to victory.
With the Dutchman leading the way, the upstart Eagles became world champions.
The game's Outstanding Player award goes to Norm Van Brocklin.
Norm Van Brocklin remains the only man in history to quarterback two different teams to an NFL championship.
Anytime.
Hello, I'm Ted Hendricks of the Los Angeles Raiders.
Ted Hendricks was, in my mind, if not the best outside linebacker, the most complete outside linebacker. Coverage, pass rushing, intelligence, playing the run, the whole 9 yards. I think LT's the best I've ever seen. Ted is right there.
Over his 15-year career with the Colts, Packers, and Raiders, it was a tall order for any offense to contain 6'7" Ted Hendricks. The player known as the Mad Stork, and kick him in the head Ted could seemingly do anything. Whether playing the run, the pass, or blocking more kicks than any player in history.
It's blocked to the middle. Raiders after the ball.
The four-time Super Bowl champion was a man of many teams, many names, and many adventures.
I remember Ted Hendricks addressing a group of Hispanics off the balcony of his hotel about 5 a.m. in fluent Spanish. Ted Hendricks is someone who rode on the practice field in a white horse, and another time in camp sat one of those, tables that you see at a Mexican restaurant with the umbrella and had a pitcher of margaritas.
There's a Renaissance fair every year in California, and I like to collect a mask every year. I'll wear them driving down the street in the car, and you get some very interesting looks from different people, kind of like stare at you. I wonder what kind of human beings behind that mask.
Ted Hendricks was one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. In business, in television, in football. Ted would come in on Monday morning, hungover from the night before, or maybe it was just a kind of a continuation of the night before. And we would put up film of the next week's opponent. And Ted would sit there half awake and call out the play they were going to run before they ran it. And as a young player, you're sitting there and you're saying to yourself, how does he know all the answers? Well, he played for Don Shula with the Colts. The guy's seen every offensive formation and every variation since that time. I remember one time we were playing Miami and they sent someone to crack back on Ted on a sweep that way. And Ted was just so insulted that Don had called that play and that Don thought that Ted might not recognize the play, and Ted is yelling at Don Shula on the sideline. Don, that's an insult. You can't run that play. I saw that in '71.
I've studied the game long enough to know the different blocking techniques that I have to deal with. I've seen it so many times during my career that it just comes natural. There's not very much work involved in it.
Ted was a guy who you could line up next to. He would say, look, they're in far formation. I want you to slant inside. That wasn't the huddle call. We'd make the play, get back in the huddle. Ted would say to me, look, when you go in your meeting, you blame it on me. And when I go in my meeting, I'll blame it on you. Ted went where Ted wanted to go. That was the magic of Ted Hendricks.
Before the countdown continues, here's a look back at numbers 90 to 82. Number 90, Kurt Warner. Number 89, Ernie Nevers. Number 88, the 2004 Defensive Player of the Year, Ed Reed. Number 87, Crazy Legs Hirsch. Number 86, the man who forced the $1 million fumble, Willie Davis. Number 85, Marcus Allen. Number 84, Joe Schmidt. Number 83, the only quarterback to lead two different teams to an NFL title, Norm Van Brocklin. Number 82, four-time Super Bowl champion, Ted Hendricks. And now, number 81.
What was most striking about Steve, to me, was he's very, very bright. I mean, very bright.
Same name as the category.
Rubber, wedding, and marching band.
Yeah, wow, that was good.
He went to law school. I don't think he's ever practiced law. He can do whatever he wants. I always thought he would be the governor of Utah. While I was with him at BYU, we would go into Georgia. Steve threw 6 interceptions that day. Afterwards, I remember talking to him and saying, hey, man, we got to fix this or I'm going to be, I've got little kids and you got to take care of me here. And then he led the nation in total offense, and he'd have these remarkable games running and passing. And I thought, in my opinion, could have won the Heisman Trophy.
In 1987, Steve Young and Mike Holmgren were reunited in San Francisco, where Young faced yet another challenge, being second on the depth chart behind Joe Montana.
There's a side of him, like a lot of really bright guys, that he really thinks he knows how to do it better than his coach does. But he's smart enough to know this is the way I have to do it to be successful. To Steve's credit, when it came his time to play, he was ready. The greatest play I ever saw him make, and one of the great offensive plays I've ever seen in my life, was a run against the Vikings. The Vikings are winning the game with very little time left on the clock. Joe was hurt, Steve was playing, and we call a little 3-step drop.
Young in trouble. He's going to be sacked. No, gets away. He runs, gets away again, goes to the 40. Young is in trouble, and he got away somehow. Gets away again to the 35. Cuts back at the 30. Young might score. To the
finally makes a 65-yard touchdown run and we win the game. And during the course of the run, I stand up and I am punching the plexiglass window and I break my hand. I'm just going, run, run. To be great, as Steve became, Hall of Fame and all that stuff, he had to discipline himself as a thrower. I can't rely on using my legs to get out of this all the time. And with Steve, you coach him, but he kind of figured these things out for himself.
You got to be able to put plays together without tripping, without throwing an interception. All right? Let's put it together.
And now he throws for the end zone, and he's got Owens, and he catches the ball!
Young learned to beat teams with his legs and his arm. His career passer rating of 96.8 is the highest of any quarterback in NFL history.
One of my favorite moments in football is you let the ball go and you get hit immediately and you're the bottom of this pile. And the only way you can tell what's going on, because your face is in the mud, is to look and kind of watch the fans. You know that it's completed, and then the cheer gets louder, like he's gone in for a touchdown. At that moment, Art's at its greatest form, because that's kind of football. You kind of see it, you kind of have an idea, you kind of practice it, and then you just let it go. I like Sid Gilman used to tell him, coach, there's no rubber band on that ball, so just let it go and hope for the best.
He killed me. My last coaching game in Green Bay.
If you want to take one crack, maybe he's the guy who should go for it. Young almost falls down, throws to the end zone. Owens! The ball had to be perfect. It was! Somehow, some way. Niners will win it! Niners will win it!
Young played his best on the game's biggest stage, setting a record for the most touchdown passes in a single Super Bowl, with 6 in 1994.
Left flat, Ricky Waters makes the catch, he's in! Touchdown 49ers! Quick pass to the goal line, Floyd falls in, touchdown 49ers!
When he hit these points in his career where it wasn't what he thought it should be, he did something about it. Whether you're talking about the day 6 interception thing at BYU or his having to sit on the bench a little bit in San Francisco. In all those instances, he decided, this isn't what I wanted, I want this, and he went and got it. So when he's holding that Super Bowl trophy, the elation, just the fantastic feeling you get from reaching the top of the mountain, you could see it.
It's the greatest feeling in the world, is it not? 39 days! Hey, I share this with every one of you guys. Everyone in this room made a commitment, and we're there. And no one can ever take it away from us, ever!
On the next episode of Top 100.
From watching a guy like him growing up, it inspired me to accomplish at this level.
He was a very intimidating person, probably the best player the Raiders had, and he would knock the living crap out of you.
He's not only in the top 100, but he's right there in the top running backs of all time.
The countdown to the greatest player in NFL history continues when numbers 80 to 71 are revealed next time on the Top 100.